growing our leadership capacities and capabilities in the organization is the most important thing that we can do as leaders, and it's also the way that we ensure that that we have a way to get consistent results, but without focusing on the numbers. Right? We're a very metric-oriented organization, as you know, very metric-oriented. We measure things 20 ways from Sunday. The problem is nobody ever got lit up by meeting a number. And so, the question becomes, how is it that we're going to motivate people to perform? And it isn't until we sort of tap into the personal side of people and the motivators inside them that we really kind of unlock the key to engagement and therefore performance. So a little bit about me. So I've been 41 years in the business. Last May I completed my PhD in media psychology, as Dom said. My undergraduate degree is in electrical engineering, so I've been an engineer and practicing, not a practicing engineer, but engineering school taught me how to think, I think. And but listen, when I went to engineering school, just to be fair, the personal computer had not yet been invented. We did all of our programming on PDP-11s with dip switches and programming with trays of cards, for you stand in line at the big IBM machine. That's what programming was like when I went to engineering school. We studied tubes, not transistors. Transistors were just, starting to make their way into mainstream, and we did study transistors, but most of our textbooks were still studying tube technology when I went to engineering school. So how many of you have teams reporting to you? Everybody's got teams reporting. You don't have a team. You're an individual contributor, what we call an individual contributor. All right, good. So talk to me a little bit about some of your aha moments that you had here in this first 2 weeks.
Well, the biggest, I acquired a team, and I seen some room for improvement.
Okay.
And but I didn't know how to address the performance issues.
Okay.
And this gave me that direct approach.
Okay.
I guess sometimes I was using it without realizing I was using it, but this gave me a framework to actually work from,
Okay.
so that I hit all the points.
Good. So let me ask you a question. Do you know what happens the first Saturday of every March?
Yep.
What? The first Saturday of every March, what happens?
I'm almost somewhere around that time frame.
Oh, well.
Talk about being a contributor.
Yeah, exactly. No. The first Saturday of every March is the beginning of the Iditarod, the dog mushing race from Anchorage to Nome, Alaska. Now, I was hired by AT&T in 2002. I'd been, a little bit on my background, I was a microwave systems engineer. I became employee number 70 at Sprint, and then left there and did turnarounds working around the world. And a guy that I'd met at Sprint went on to become, he was the incoming chairman to Legacy AT&T in 2001, the end of 2001. And he called me. I was literally sitting on the beach, would be 15 years ago next week, sitting on the beach smoking a cigar, and I got a call from Dave Dorman's office, and David said, he'd been a friend for 20 years at that point. David said, we got to have somebody go to this little business that we own in Alaska and turn it around. AT&T owned it, and it had been losing 11% a year for 7 years. The first 7 years AT&T owned it. So I was sent to Alaska. I was hired by AT&T, sent to Alaska, and for 9 years I was the president and CEO of Alaskon. So I arrived in Anchorage on Friday, March 1st, 2002. And about 4 o'clock in the morning, I'm staying in Captain Cook Hotel. I want to address the issue of team, because I want to give you a frame to think about what a team really is, right? Many times we mistake a collection of ambitious individuals or energetic individuals for a team, and the two are radically different. Just because you have people reporting to you doesn't mean they're a team. And here's why. So I woke up at about 8 o'clock. Actually, I was awakened about 4 o'clock Saturday morning by a whole bunch of racket going on down on 4th Avenue. So I look out the window and I can see these dump trucks coming in, and they're bringing snow in because 4th Avenue's been scraped clean, but they're getting ready for the start of the Iditarod. And about 6 o'clock, trucks start arriving, and the trucks all park. 4th Avenue runs east-west. I know I drew it north-south, but all these streets that tee into 4th Avenue, and so the trucks, kennel trucks arrive, and they park on the streets and prepare their sleds. Now, in the Iditarod, there are 70 some odd teams that run, and everybody's running against the clock. And at the far east end of 4th Avenue is the starting line. So the ones that are going to start first park closest, and the ones that are going to start last park furthest away. And so these kennel trucks come, and they're specially made trucks with boxes stacked too high. Dogs are facing the outside, and they carry anywhere from 16 to 20 dogs on the truck. And in the middle of the truck is the sled and all the paraphernalia that the musher needs to get started. They have already dropped food and supplies off at all the stop points along the way, because it's 1,049 miles from Anchorage to Nome, okay, in the route that they run. And about 6 o'clock in the morning, the racket starts. These trucks start arriving, and the dogs are barking. And these dogs are specially bred dogs. They're not what you think of as standard husky. They're leaner than that, but they're bred to run, and that's what they love to do. They love to run, and so and they train all year pulling sleds. They love to pull sleds, and they love to run. And these dogs are just barking and yapping and making all kinds of noise. And so these trucks park, and one by one, the musher will get out and get a dog out of the kennel box and chain them to the side of the truck so they don't run everywhere, right? Because if they got all 16 dogs out and didn't chain them on the side of the truck, those dogs would do exactly what they love to do, which is run. They run everywhere, right? And this is what happens when we don't think about what creates a team, because those dogs would be running everywhere around downtown Anchorage, but they wouldn't be a team. Even though there's a musher, there's one person in control, supposedly, right? Those dogs are going everywhere, doing everything that they want to do. And so one by one, the musher gets the dogs out, changes them to the side of the truck, and then he gets the sled out and lays the harness out in the snow. Now, you start the race with 16 dogs, right? And it's a double harness. And so 8 dogs on a side. One by one, they unchain the dogs from the side of the truck, and they put their little booties on them and get them fed and walk them over to the harness. Now, the dog knows exactly where it goes in the harness. They train all year round. And so the reason why there's a particular place in the harness is because each dog has a role. The front left dog is always the lead dog. The front right dog is the second lead in case they have to drop the lead dog. But the lead dog is listening to the musher's commands, and he will guide the sled. He or she will guide the sled as it goes across Alaska. And the dogs closest to the sled are called the wheelhouse dogs. And those are the dogs that actually bear most of the weight as they get the sled moving. Now, that's a really tiring position, as you might imagine, and so the back 6 dogs typically rotate into that wheelhouse position every so many miles. But this is our first frame for what you think about when you have a team, and that is, with a team, everybody's got a role. And if you don't define the role for your team members, they'll be just like an unchained dog. They'll just run here and run there, but they won't be a team. Everybody's got a role. Now, you can have team members that have the same role, but you have to identify for them what the role is. So, for instance, in my world, we could have prem techs that are really good at solving thorny issues, and their role is to be the subject matter expert for the crew. When you get a problem, don't call me, call him or her, because they've solved this problem, right? So there's a role there. Maybe there's a leadership role, maybe they're a safety spot, but there's a role for them to play. Everybody on the team has to have a role, and if you don't give them a role, they're going to be just like an unchained dog. They're going to go here, they're going to go there, they're going to do what they're trained to do but what they want to do, and it's not going to contribute to what you want done with your team. So that's the first frame. The second frame is they all get in the harness. Now, what's in the harness? Harness, when you put a team in a harness, there is accountability. You cannot have a dog that wants to go there and a dog that wants to go there. They both have to go that direction when they're in the harness. Oftentimes I hear the words accountability and discipline used in the same sentence. It's not the right use of the word accountability. Accountability is not something you impose on somebody else. You cannot impose accountability on somebody. When I hear we've got accountability and discipline problem, I'm thinking to myself, we've got an ownership problem. You don't fix accountability with discipline, you fix accountability with ownership. Now those dogs own their place in the harness. They all know exactly where they go in the harness. And accountability is what happens when you afford somebody accountability. Accountability is always given, it's not placed. When a politician runs for public office, what's implied in running for public office is they are affording the public accountability over them and their actions. And our accountability comes by way of our vote, it comes by way of the court system, it comes several different ways, but that's what's implied in running for public office is the public trust is afforded accountability over them. When a technician has an ownership problem, you will not be able to fix that by placing more accountability on them. When they have ownership and they're in the harness together, when the big idea is the harness, whatever that is, the big idea is the harness. When they are all in the harness together, they hold each other accountable. I went to, my first year here, I went to the Royal Oak Garage just outside of Detroit. 685 days accident-free. Now there are 60 techs in that garage, 60 prem techs. And we all know that in the prem tech world, safety is a bit of a different standard than in the old core world. Those guys tended to be safe for longer periods of time. Here were 60 prem techs, accident-free, 685 days, 4 crews. Now I could have taken the managers out of that garage and they would have been just fine because nobody wanted to be the guy to screw up that record. They were all holding each other accountable. That's how accountability works. They're all in the harness together, and the big idea was we're working accident-free today. That's the big idea. And so they were all in that harness together. So that's the second frame of what creates a team. If you don't give them a harness so that they can hold each other accountable, you're cooked. They're going to run all over the place, right? And the third frame for what creates a team is, look, every one of those dogs, or almost every one of those dogs, have run that race before. And they're jumping and barking and yapping, but they know that the goal is to get to know. That's the goal. They want to get to know. That's where they're going to get peace, right? And so you don't give a team 15 things to do. You give a team one big goal, one big idea, one big goal to chase. And you may break it down into 2 or 3 things, but no more complex than that. Some interesting behavior studies. When you give a team 2 to 3 things to do, you know how many things they can get done? No, they actually get 2 to 3 things done. When you give a team 4 to 10 things to do, you know how many things they get done?
2 to 3.
Yeah, they get 1 to 2 things done. And when you give a team 11 to 20 things to do, you know how many they get done? They get 0 done. And the reason why is because their mind, the brain can't figure out which is the most important thing to do, and they'll move the marble ahead on 11 things and not complete any one of them. And so part of the art of leadership, you know, we measure this business 20 ways from Sunday, like I said before. Part of the art of leadership is to figure out what are the 2 or 3 most important things for us to do. When I got here, the Midwest was dead last. We were so far in last place, we couldn't even see the taillights, whoever was in next to last place. We were last operationally, we were last safety-wise, we were last financially. Dead last. And woe to you if you did not have all 20 items on the scorecard